Let's now talk about collaboration with GitHub. So the question is here, well, if I have a repository and I create some content, who can see the content and who can edit the content? Also, if I have an account and I can access the settings of that account, who can change those settings to make them different? I'm going to answer that question with an example where I'm going to use my own account, this one, Mauro Lepore, in this repository, ABCD. And I'm going to interact with another account. So let me show you by example. So this is my repository. I am the owner of this repository. I am the one who created it. And you can see that, for example, if I step on this file called README, I have a bunch of options here that help me, for example, edit the file. So I click there and I'm presented with basically the source of the text that is displayed when that is transformed into a website. And I can change it. So I can, remove the title or change the title and do anything that I want, really. And then once I save those changes, which in GitHub a save is called a commit, then that change is applied, right? So what would happen if someone else that is not me wants to do something like that? So let's try. So I'm going to create, I'm going to first show you the address of this repository. So the address was this one here, Mauro Lepore ABCD. So if I remove everything else from here, that takes me to where we were before. So if, sorry for that, if this address is pasted in a in a private window in Chrome, I open it with Shift-Control-N. That window knows nothing about how I'm logged in any other Chrome session. So in this particular window of the browser, I'm not logged in my GitHub account. That simulates as if I was any other user different than myself. So you see that I have now, I read here sign in as an option because I'm not signed in. So what happens in this address? Well, in this address, I can see the files that live in this repository. For example, that README file that we saw before, which is now edited as we did it before too. And that pen here is not available. I'm clicking on it and nothing happens. And that is because I have no right, no access, no privileges to edit any content in this repo. So a user that is not yourself or a collaborator, which I'm going to explain what that means in a second, can see the content but cannot modify it, cannot change it. In the words of GitHub, cannot push changes or commit changes. So let's change that. So we are going to, let's say that I, the owner of the account, Mauro Lepore, wants to give access to the other account, to some other account, so that another user can edit stuff, so we can actually collaborate together. So, well, the way you can do that is by going to settings, and you are going to the collaborators section. First, I need to confirm that I am myself, so I'm going to enter my password here, if I remember it. There you go. And what I'm going to do now is to, here in this search field, I'm going to type the name of some other user using their username, their full name, or the email. The one that works always is the username. And I'm going to search, for example, for an account that is called Forest GeoTest. I know this user, and I want this user to be able to edit my content. So I find the user, and then I click here on Add Collaborator, and that will, what we'll do that is to create an invitation. But that person won't be able to edit anything until they confirm that they want to be part of my repository. They want to collaborate on my repository. That's why here you see that the message says awaiting for a response. You can also click the link here of the invite, and send an email letting the user know that you have invited that person to your repo and you want them to accept the invitation. GitHub will do that too. We'll send an email to them, so they should see it. So let's go now to my private window, pretending that I'm someone else, and let's sign in. Now I'm going to pretend that I'm that other user that I mentioned before. It was Forest Geo Test, and the password should be this one. Yes, that's right. So now I'm logged in as Forest Geo Test. There you see. And I'm seeing the repository of Mauro Lepore. Still, I don't see controls to edit stuff here because I haven't yet accepted the invitation. So now, being logged as that user, now I can paste the invitation link that the account Mauro Lepore sent to me. So if I do that, I appear in this page where I can accept his invitation. So I'm going to accept it, and now you see that we have a little pencil here. So now I'm a collaborator officially on this repo, which means that I can edit here and even remove everything else if I want. Do whatever I want. I don't know, whatever. So let's confirm this change by clicking here in commit. There is something that I have just added. So I have collaborated on this repo. So Mauro Lepore on the other account could go back to where he was, and he will see already the change that the collaborator did. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. There we go. So what we just did is, so Mauro Lepore, the account Mauro Lepore, can edit anything in his repo. The other account, well, in this slide I was expecting another account, but sorry for the change. I'm using another account that is called Forest Geo Test. Could not edit at the beginning, but then Mauro Lepore sent an invitation which Forest Geo Test accepted with the link that the second account got by either email or just by going to the address of the repository and the extension invitations. And then once that is done, then you can edit as well. But that makes you makes the second account a collaborator in editing content. It does not give any right to change the settings. So to prove that, I'm going back to the account Forest Geo Test, and to just show you that here we don't see the settings option that we do see in Mauro Lepore's account. So this is Mauro Lepore's account, and here you see settings. So Mauro Lepore can, for example, control who else is invited as a collaborator, whereas this other account, the collaborator cannot invite other collaborators. So one interesting aspect of repositories is that you can control which notifications you get about what's happening in that repository, and you can control it at two levels. At the level of the repository, you can click here on the watch button here and say if you want to not watch that repository, to watch, or when you click not watch, then you will be only getting notifications if someone explicitly mentions your username, or you can, there are other options, and all the way to ignoring completely what's going on, even if you're mentioned. And then the control can also be at the level of issues. We discussed issues before. We discussed that it is a kind of email that is specific to a repository. And it happens sometimes that one issue is not relevant to you, and for some reason, you're receiving notifications. Well, you can unsubscribe from that particular thread and yet be notified about any others. So I'm going to quickly go show you what that looks like here in real life. So here is the repository Mauro Lepore ABC. Let me maximize this. And here you see that there is this unwatch button, and you can say what you want to do. You want to not watch and only be notified if you're mentioned. You want to ignore completely, or you want to watch the repo. And then and that's at the level of the repo. And here within the issues, each issue will give you the option to subscribe or unsubscribe, right? So I'm now subscribed to this thread, but even as an owner, I could unsubscribe from it and let other people maintain a conversation. That's a very useful feature when your team of collaborators gets big and a lot of communication happens that is not relevant to you, and you don't want to be notified of those. So with that, I believe that we finished this section. Let me confirm. Yeah, so in the next block, I'm going to talk about pages in terms of web pages.